Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? The forum is about to begin. Honorable Madam Fauzanita Kasim, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and Assalamualaikum. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you to this forum discussion and thank you for allocating your time and attending the forum today. I hope all of you was in the pink of health. My name is HANISAH binti Muhammad Asri and I'm a moderator for today. And I'm from an association of healthcare journalists. As a journalist, it was great to explore deeper into healthcare journeys and new experience. It is an honor to be a moderator for this special occasion. Before we start, let me introduce to all of you our panels for today. Most of them have a lot of knowledge and have a different background to share their experience about the topic that we will be discussing today. The first panel is Doctorate Psychology Dr. Ahmad Aiman Afif and Ghazali, a psychology expert, has been working for 7 years as clinical psychologist in Hospital Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia HUKM. Thank you for coming, Doctor.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting us.
Sure.
How are you doing that?
I'm good, Doctor. Okay, so next, our second panel for today is a Professor Dr. RUSHDINA binti Muhammad ABDUL, young and beautiful and a Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic and International of University of Malaya for 4 years. She is recognized as a leader of the unity at a young age. Thank you for joining us today, Doctor.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. And the third panel, Cik Nur Sabrina binti Muhammad, lawyer and NSM legal firm owner. NSM legal firm is recognized by their values, every action that contributes to a fairer society. NSM firm, they provide free legal advice to help the community. She has been working with many collaborations with other legal firms and has been working for 6 years in this field. Thank you for coming, Cik Sabrina.
Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. And our last panels are one of a kind, which is she is passionate in teaching and all of her students has been successfully and becoming a role model. She is a professor of sociology at the National University of Malaysia and she is Professor Sarah binti Muhammad YUSRI. Thank you for coming, Professor.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure, Doctor. So today our agenda is to share and discuss mental health is a problem. The topic for today aims to create greater awareness and improve understanding of mental health. In the first round, we will discuss the effect of mental health and at the second round, we'll go deeper into this topic. So talking about mental health is a problem. What is mental health? Mental health refers to cognitive, behavioral and emotional well-being. It is all about how people think, feel and behave. People sometimes use the term mental health to mean the absence of mental disorder. However, this link also works in the other direction. Mental health can affect our daily living, our relationship, and our physical health. Although mental health is in everyday use, doctors recognize many conditions as psychological disorders with physical roots. In this forum session, we will discuss issues on mental health is a problem. So do not waste our time. So let us start with the first panel. My question is, mental illness is seen as a problem in the psychology field. Is it a serious complication, Dr. Ahmad, please?
I would like to answer that question briefly. But first of all, thank you for welcoming us here. I'm very excited and happy to be working and sat here forum with you and other panelists. Okay, based on questions, let us start with the definition. Mental illness, also called mental health disorders, refers to a wide range of mental health conditions like disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. Examples of mental illness include depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addictive behaviors. I believe this is a serious issue, which means everyone has potential to possess it. Many people have mental health concern from time to time, But a mental health concern becomes a mental illness when ongoing signs and symptoms of frequent stress and affect your ability to function. A mental illness can make your life miserable and can cause problems in your daily life, such as at school or work or maybe in relationships. All these illnesses also can affect physical health. When a patient has a lot of crying, they will lose a lot of water, they will dehydrate, sore throat, fever, and anything could happen. It can be a serious complication in aspect severity mental illness. Severe mental illness is often defined by its length of duration and the disability it produces. These illnesses include disorders that produce psychotic symptoms such as schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder, and severe forms of other disorders such as major depression and bipolar disorder. So this is the answer for this. This is a serious complication. I think that's a very compact answer that I can share with you and members of the floor. Thank you.
I also found that it can be a very serious complication. I had an experience on my side too.
Oh, I see.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. That was an explicit explanation that is crystal clear, where the signs and symptoms of mental illness cause frequent stress and it can affect individual daily life and they will be in challenging time phases for them. So I'm moving on to the next question. Dr. Rushdina, how is a mental illness affecting students towards of their education? Is it a major obstacle? Would you please enlighten us?
Thank you for the question. I couldn't agree more with how mental health is a real problem and is considered a major obstacle as it can play a vital role in students' success or failure. Students' reliability and mental capacity are all affected by their mental health, where it can impact the working memory, which makes it very challenging to retain new information and recall previously learned information. Mental health also negatively influences students' academic progress and encourages underachievement. When students are facing mental health issues, they are more likely to disengage in classroom. This can cause them to participate in behaviors that will allow them to avoid certain events and situations. To give you an idea, such as missing classes or going to the nurse during a quiz or presentation are also a few ways students may demonstrate that they are actually struggling with mental health disorder. It can also lead to inconsistent academic results. To show you what I mean, a student may produce incredible work one day and barely be able to complete a single task the next. The inconsistency of these disorders can leave students feeling very frustrated, and teachers are also confused and unsure to how to approach the situation. There is a research that shows mental health has also been linked to students dropping out of school, and many college students report that mental health difficulties interfere with their studies as it does affect their energy level, attentiveness, and optimism, which resulting in poor performance. This is why I think teachers have to be prepared and know which signs to seek and look for so that they can determine what is really going on with student and how they can best help them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rosina. We know that the young generation is our hope for the future, so students knowing about their mental health limit can help the young generation to have a better life. We know it is challenging, but mental health is a part of our life and we need to be aware of it at a young age, right, Doctor? So I suggest that maybe you may explain more in our second session. So I would like to ask from the law perspective, Cik Nur Sabrina, how is mental illness seen as a problem in the law field? Is it a severe problem? Because mental illness person is seen as ill individuals who commit crimes. Would you further explain?
Thanks, moderator, for that question. But before I answer the question, let me enlighten you with some historical perspective perspective regarding to mental health law. Before Malaysia gained independence in 1957, the Lunatic Ordinance of 1952 was enacted by the British. That was followed by the Mental Health Disorder Ordinance of 1952 for Peninsular Malaysia. The Ministry of Health introduced the Mental Health Act 2001, which was seen as a turning point for mental health care as it contained detailed policy guidelines for the delivery of services. The Act consolidates the law in relation to mental disorder and provides procedures for the admission, detention, lodging, care, treatment, rehabilitation, control, and protection of persons who are mentally disordered and for related matters. Other significant events which have driven change include the integration of mental health care into primary practice in 1998 and the introduction of the mental health policy. Based on what I just explained just now, we know that the government really took this mental health issues seriously. That alone can explain that mental health is a real problem. The researchers analyzed 429 crimes and committed by 143 offenders by the three major types of mental illness and found that 3% of their crimes were directly related to symptoms of major depression, 4% to symptoms of schizophrenia disorder, and 10% to system of bipolar disorder. The criminal law recognizes that a person's mental illness should be taken into account when they are tried for a serious crime and when they are sentenced. In most cases where the accused person has a mental illness, this is considered when the court decides on a sentence. In these cases, forensic care sometimes provides an independent report to the court about the person's mental illness so that the court can determine an appropriate sentence. The existence of mental health law itself shows how important and problematic that issue to individual, community, and country. Thank you.
Thank you, Cik Sabrina. So this is a new information for us. There will be a different procedure for mental illness patient and independent report to the court about the person's mental illness, so it is fair for the court can determine to make an appropriate sentence. So my next question for Professor Sarah is it mental illness seen as a problem in the sociology field? Professor Sarah, is it a serious dilemma in society nowadays? Please enlighten us.
Thank you for the question. Based on the question, I just to say that mental health is not a big problem, and I do think that mental health is not a serious dilemma in our society. The reason that I stand with it is because I think it's just a normal problem that all of us, it's just something that is related to our emotions. In our life, we do have various types of emotion, such as sadness, happiness, fear, and joy or surprise. It is a behavior that everyone has in their life and face it. Unmotivated or uninspired from time to time, it is normal to feel like that. It is not a big problem and a normal thing that happened to us. Furthermore, this problem does not have a long-term effect for us. I think that someone who is suffering from this problem can manage and control it. Some emotional suffering may lead us to have a hard time, but it can be managed and it can be avoided in the first place. It is because study in sociology of mental health confirm that the importance of social integration as a fundamental cause of well-being. Social integration can be defined as the extent to which individuals participate in a variety of social relationships, including engagement in social activities or relationship, and a sense of communality and identification with one's social roles. Someone involved in social integration report better mental health than those who are isolated. From that study, I think that all people can avoid themselves from having this illness. So it is not a problem for our society because this can be managed and avoided. Thank you.
I apologize for the interruption, but do you mind giving me an example regarding social integration, Cik Sarah?
Sure, Dr. RUSHDINA. Social integration is like involved with formal or informal activity. For example, activities include having contact with family and friends, while formal activities are being involved with voluntary organizations such as research, civic organization, and safety.
So thank you, Dr. Rushdina, for your question, and thank you, Professor Sarah. That was an explicit explanation. We can see the relationship between the consequence of social interaction, and it can be related with mental health. Without further ado, we have listened to the explanation from all of the panelists that have different background and experience. For the second session, let's go deeper into this topic. Now, my question is for Dr. Ahmad. Can mental illness affect someone's self-development and social life? Dr. Ahmad, please.
Alright, in most cases, symptoms can be managed with a combination of medication and talk therapy like psychotherapy or maybe cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, that's what we call in psychology. It depends on the patient which one method suits them. So then, not only do people have to be sick, want to get treated and go to actually get treatment. Generally, they only want this because mental illness is causing a problem in their life. But when mental illness is at the low state of illness, it will not affect someone's self-development and social life. But somehow, if someone has a perfectionist disorder, it can be like perfectionists strive to produce flawless work, and they also have higher levels of motivation than non-perfectionists. However, they are also more likely to set inflexible and excessively high standards, to evaluate their behavior overcritically, to hold an all or nothing mindset about their performance, like my work is either perfect or a total failure, and to believe their self-worth is contingent on performing perfectly. By being a leader, employee, professional workers, scientists, it is very important to have a very particular observation and have a good quality of work. I think there are some situations that happened to share, and I'm very hope all of us in a very superior good state. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Ahmad. That was a great view. You said that mental illness can affect self-development and social life, and the effect is depends on the individual. So, Dr. Rushdina, can you share with us a suggestion on how to help students?
Thank you for the brilliant question. As an educator, what I believe can actually help students who are struggling with mental health is by implementing mental health education into schools, as the benefit of this type of education are insurmountable. According to Brain Power Center, 90% of those who commit suicide had an underlying mental illness without being taught about the reality of mental illness, how dark, scary, and alone it feels. So the best way kids are going to learn to understand mental health is to educate them, especially during the early school years. Why? Because during this time, children form their first friendship and teenagers are shaping their self-worth and self-esteem. You may wonder how would this actually work? Well, the primary goal of mental health education is to create increased awareness. This involves teaching children what mental health means and how to maintain positive mental health. It's important that youth understand the concept of self-care and that they are responsible for their own mental health. This also helps eliminate stigma. Stigma is a mark of disgrace that sets an individual apart. These people are defined by their illness and associated with a stereotype group. Negative attitudes towards stereotype groups can lead to one feeling of blame, shame, hopelessness, and also distress. So by educating our youth about mental illness, we begin to normalize mental illness conversations and the stigma surrounding it begins to dissipate. Therefore, by talking about mental health, we can promote greater acceptance and understanding, which will in turn increase help-seeking behavior. And for me, I think mental health education in school really is extremely valuable as it can positively impact the lives of our children and youth. Thank you.
Moderator, I have
Yes.
some thoughts if you would be open to hearing it. May I?
Yes, sure, sure. Sure, Doctor.
Okay. From my perspective, when mental health problems are left undiagnosed or untreated, it can lead to unhealthy coping mechanism and negatively affect a child's ability to grow and learn, along with an increased understanding of the importance of mental health. Children should be provided with strategies and tools to cope with mental health challenges. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rushina, and thank you, Dr. Ahmad. So you said that family is important and plays a vital role in time to give a student support and to educate them. So during the mental health crisis, how does law enforcement handle this mental health crisis? Cik Sabrina, would you please enlighten us?
Thank you, moderator, for that interesting question. So in 2020, mental illness is expected to be the second biggest health problem affecting Malaysians after heart disease. According to the latest National Health and Morbidity Survey, every 3 in 10 adults aged 19 years and above in Malaysia suffer from some form of mental health issues. So, how does the law enforcement handle this mental health crisis? Okay. A person suspected of being mentally ill may be admitted involuntarily on application to the medical director of an acute psychiatry unit by a relative, police officer, or social welfare officer following a personal examination no more than 5 days before the admission. The Malaysian Mental Health Act 2001 states that an involuntary patient can be discharged at any time by the medical director and does not specify a provision for an independent review of the detention. A study in 2018 reported that Malaysia had a significant deficit of psychiatrists and psychologists with a ratio 1.27 psychiatrists per 100,000 population. The primary care model is community-based with 22 established community-based specialist mental health services and 958 mental health day centers. Additionally, Malaysia has 4 mental health hospitals and 47 psychiatrist inpatient units attached to general hospitals. Malaysia has used a more pragmatic approach to establish 38 inpatient units designated for children and adolescents. Malaysia is indeed not on par with our neighbor Singapore in handling this mental health crisis, but I think that our country must do the best in handling the crisis, and of course, there are a lot of rooms for improvement. Thank you.
Sorry, Cik Sabrina, could you explain further about when mental illness patient commit crime? What possible law enforcement that they will face?
Okay, thank you, Professor Sarah, for that question. To answer this question, I will refer to laws of Malaysia Act 615 Mental Health Act 2001. If you remember, I already mentioned that this law in the first question that the moderator gave me. In this Mental Health Act 2001, there are 12 parts and 94 sections, and all of that parts and sections referring to mental health issues. I can't possibly interpret all of the parts and sections due to the time given, but I will talk about 1 or 2 things that contain in it, contain in this Mental Health Act 2001. Section 10, referring to admission of involuntary patient into psychiatric hospital. A person who is suspected to be mentally disordered may be admitted and detained in a psychiatric hospital with the rules that contain in it. To answer the Professor Sarah's question directly, procedure law will be run according to the patient situation. So the court will give power to examine a person alleged to mentally disorder according to section 54, and the sentence will be given after the thoroughly examination and investigation. I hope that will answer your question, Professor Sarah. Thank you.
So thank you, Professor Sarah, for your question, and thank you, Cik Sabrina. So you explained that law enforcement have a different method to handle mental illness patient. But Professor Sarah, you said that you did not agree with the law enforcement procedure when handling mental illness patients. So is there any reason that you don't agree with law enforcement, Professor Sarah?
Thank you, moderator, for the question. In my point of view, it is not like you do not need to meet the psychiatrist or counselor to treat your illness. It's just that I don't suggest that someone with serious illness only rely on psychiatrist drug. Psychiatrists telling them that they have a disease and keep on giving a prescribing pill. I think it is not a good way to help them. Only relying on prescribing if other harmful effects in the future. It is possible that promoting healthy lifestyle and reducing socioeconomic inequality, workplace pressure, and family demand could enhance mental health to a greater extent than telling people that they have a disease and prescribing pill to remedy their condition. So I think that people with this problem need to have more social interaction with others. Social interaction is more likely to help you to improve to improve their emotional suffering. Many studies provide evidence that societal influence help behavior. Someone with this illness tend to isolate themselves from other people. Too much time on your own can make you feel lonely and out of touch. So it is important to spend time with others. Having an interaction with other people can increase your mood and make you feel happier. It is good for our soul, especially other that share common interests with you are good for your well-being. So for me, it is important to have a social interaction with others to help your illness instead of only relying on the psychiatrist. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sarah. So we are getting close to the end of our time. From this discussion, we learn new knowledge that different fields have a different ways to cope with the mental health crisis. So mental illness seems like not a big deal because the most that can affect it is only certain individuals that experience this illness will feel the burden. So it is not uncommon for people to misunderstand mental illness. We need to expose for our young generation about the importance of mental health awareness. A society that can create a good environment for mental health crises can lead to a harmonious country in the future. So mental health awareness doesn't just help our community. So knowing more about mental health issue can also help people around us, for the loved one, our family members, friends and co-workers. Finally, we come to the end part of our forum. We would like to say thanks again to all of our panelists for their informative and interesting talk, and for all of the audience for your participation. Hopefully, this forum session will be beneficial for everybody. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum and thank you.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you.